Hey everyone, welcome to Expansioncast. Expansioncast is a magical podcast I created so people could find simple or unconventional solutions to expand their personal awareness and experience. This podcast is dedicated towards revealing people's divine truth and how that divine truth works its way out into the world, one by one, helping liberate each of us on our personal path to freedom. If you love this podcast, please give us a rating and share. David Gallant, welcome to Expansioncast. I think today's going to be an interesting day. I have a feeling that we're going to really tune into abundance, and I'm kind of hoping, and I have the door open, that you tell us your story about abundance and loss of abundance and how that's changed your life and how you're have moved forward since then. Are you open to sharing that story?
Absolutely.
What was the event that transpired in your past that shook up things for you?
Oh, there's been more than a few. So I noticed the stories of things that happened in the past are simply stories. And how I knew myself in the past and the personality and the avatar that I wanted to move through the world. You would never have met a more ambitious, more A-type personality, more driven, more goal-centered person. I started my first business when I was 12. I took on things I never thought I would make it that long. So everything had to happen in life really quick, really fast, and really hard. And my beginnings, my parents were young. We didn't do all that well financially growing up. So abundance for me at the start meant financial independence. And back in the day, $1 million was a lot of money. And it felt like that was the goal, to make the first million, and driven to do it, and achieved one of the first days that I can remember really well, and what it tasted like, what it smelled like, and what it really felt like was the day that in my basement doing this, I made my first $1 million by the time I was 25 years old. And it was one of the worst days of my life. And it was supposed to be the best. It was this place, this thing that once you have that much money, life gets easier, life gets better. And so it was the same shit as it was the month before, 6 months before. It just had more zeros involved. And so that reaching towards something and trying to achieve something, when I got there, it was totally disheartening. Entirely, it was, if anything, it was a really hurtful day and a really hurtful experience, and devastating in a lot of ways, in that, no, I thought this is where life started. It wasn't.
So you had this big story that you were aiming to achieve, and when you got there, you were expecting the cosmos to like open this portal and let you into this magical kingdom or something.
Yes. So I thought, geez, I learned something from that. And maybe it's about giving away money. So it almost the exact opposite. It's like, oh, if I gave away $1 million, then if I could be a blessing to others and I could really give and do this, so I give away at least $1 million. Well, then that's the spiritual. And the same thing happened. Was wound up being, I think, $6 or $7 million that over the time that different projects and different things, whatever else. And it was the same thing. There was it was trying to fill an avatar and a personality that really was insatiable. And as long as I wanted to stay in that place of personality and what this wants and what, there's just no end to it. So, and that came to a head at another day that I remember, the humbling days. Mm-hmm. So the day that I made the money at the start, that was a humbling day. The day that, well, the the next swipe was, so I lived this blessed life. So compared to what my parents had or the life that they led, my life is like abundance in a lot of different ways. And not so much that I wound up in the morning going for a discovery flight on a plane. And it was supposed to be, you go up with a pilot, he gets his hours in, you pay for the hour, he gets extra, like for his license, he needs more hours. So you get somebody to come up with him, you watch him pilot the plane in this little 2-person Cessna, and you fly around a little bit, and then you're done. Well, the pilot, when I showed up, assumed I was a pilot. And so we wound up sitting on the tarmac, and he's telling me all things specific about this airplane that I would need to know, and this airport that I would need to know, because it's the first time I've ever been to this airport, that, you need to know this and this and this. All right, take off. And so the only thing I know about flying, I've never done a flight simulation game, is what I've seen in movies. So if you pull back, you go up. You push forward, you go down. To bank, there's foot pedals. So I'm assuming the left one makes you go left, the right one goes right. And that's what I thought I knew about flying. So he says, oh, here's where the emergency brake is, and here's the throttle, and you need this ground speed in order before you take off. Because again, that plane, it could have been a time before since I've flown that plane. So you just let me know what pilots let each other know. Mm-hmm. So I'm heading down the tarmac, and I pull back, and it's like, I don't know how hard to pull. Like in movies, they pull back dramatically because there's usually something happening. So do you pull back hard? Do you pull back soft? And I'm hoping it's pulling back. And I have this memory of heading down the runway, and this past memory of the first time driving was in my mom's car. And in those days, we didn't wear seatbelts, and I'm dating myself, but so the only thing I knew about driving cars was Dukes of Hazzard. And so we're driving what seemed like 100 miles an hour, and probably like maybe 40, 50 kilometers an hour. And the Dukes of Hazzard, if they ever have to stop, they cut away to this shot of one of their feet slamming into the brake pedal. Well, that's how I assumed you stopped. So with my mom on the driver's or the passenger side, it came to the place where we had stopped, and it was a stop. It was abrupt, and her head went right into the windshield. So as I'm driving, going down the runway, when my one thought was, oh, I wonder if this is another Dukes of Hazzard moment, flying a plane. And so we take off, and the crosswinds were just at the point where that size of plane can take off and fly. Otherwise, it gets too dangerous. So there's pockets, and there's things, and he says, oh, okay, climb to this elevation and bank this way, and he's giving me directions for at this airport there's 4 lights, and if you have you don't need all 4 lights lit up. Like if you're going the right speed and the right angle, whatever else, then more lights light up. But he's telling me, so this airport, don't worry about it. As long as you have 2, you're good, right? He says, well, in this plane, so he's saying, this plane, you might want to take a little steeper approach or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So we do that 3 times. So you go land, take off again, and do that 3 times. And I got out of the airplane afterwards, said thanks, didn't make it to my car. It hit me that I lived my life exactly the same way I flew that plane. My heart rate didn't go up. I could fly, I could do these things in the world, I could move in the world with a ton of abundance, and none of it felt like it was mine. I didn't take any of it in. It was all coming through these filters and these things, and none of it made it through. So to be that open, that experience of the sensation or the feeling of that moment was never ever there. It was always just through these brave faces and these coping mechanisms and things that I would put in place. So I could do things, but I would never feel anything. And so after trying, money wasn't making it, giving it away, and not allowing any of it to come back or to experience any of it didn't work. That day was the start of something had to change, or I was going to go for a long walk in the snow and never come back.
Mm.
And so that was the start of an exploration of uh, how can all these things in the world in abundance, I don't consider good or bad or positive or negative to be dramatically different from each other, but to be allow and to feel and be with everything. And if I
Mm.
couldn't find the place to do that, I don't know how it didn't feel like I had a place in the world.
Yeah. So I, I feel like your story is really would resonate with probably most people, unless though that I mean something had to happen to you for you to feel that desire to feel, for that desire to actually experience, instead of having everything come through filters. Um, there had to be a knowing or something come to you. Otherwise, I feel like you would just keep following that same path, that plunk, 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 and just accept it.
Well, the exterior, I was getting way more than I ever expected in the world. And I had amazing people and relationships and in money and choice and
Mm-hmm.
okay, it was, I was numb to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. And personality aside, it's like who I truly am isn't the avatar. And there was just a deep wanting to know and experience what it was to be. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave. Yeah, to be
Yeah.
from that place. It's like, oh, my mind thought it. Well, it's a problem to solve, and it wasn't. Everything I needed, everything that abundance, that end, life, the universe, however you want to define it, divine grace, like however somebody sees that, is always here and available. It's just me that keeps me away from it, like the personalities and these things and these filters and everything else. And I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that had to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever the price was, I would pay it. Like it didn't matter what the price, it didn't matter what it was. Uh, and the price was, I wouldn't say high, but it was like, there was a price to pay. So,
I, I'd love to hear about the price.
um,
I think the price is different for everyone. So
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
this is definitely the price that you personally
Yes.
paid.
Yes. So, and and is my personality and the thing that, to find my surrender, to find it, there's absolutely no, I have no aspersions that this is the one way. There's tons of mountains and tons of different paths up the mountains, and it's like this just was my journey of it. So um, after that airplane flight, I had a friend that said, "Oh, you should go to men's camp. Like, don't go on the walk. Go to a men's camp, just men out in the bush somewhere." And I can't tell you anything about it. I'm sworn to secrecy, but it's about warrior camp. So I didn't have anything to lose. So I Googled warrior camp and I Googled the wrong thing. So I showed up the wrong place, registered for a weekend of enlightenment intensives of sitting for 16 hours a day, asking, tell me who you are. And in that place, my identities and labels and things got stripped away. So when they got expressed, heard, and then not reflected, nothing, no judgments, no advice, nothing else, other than just really been heard and received, all those things started going away until I get to a place where there's just absolute blissfulness. And the only thing I am is the sensation of the blood going through my veins, or the heat that I feel through the rustle of my nostril hairs, or whatever, like sensation. That's all there is. That voice in my head, and that there was a constant, ongoing
Mm-hmm.
voice that would never let me sleep, never let me do. It would just always be reflecting, and so that's all gone. And in that place, the last bastion was to totally release and my price that I chose for myself was absolute physical, devastating pain, and a burning sensation that was I could still feel parts of the remnants of it, and it was the my understanding, or my guess was, it was my ego's and my body's attempt to say, no, we want to stay connected, we want to be, and it would do anything to say, no, I'm taking you off this path. And in that pain, uh, brought me to not just an intellectual or a mind release of nothingness, but physically bring me to the ground with retching pain. Um, my experience of it would be, and I stopped the story real quick because I don't have words and I don't have ways to explain part of this, but it just was a surrender. And in that surrender, um, and again, I'm not really holding on to the notion that these words are anything but just my mind's trying to interpret something that it can't be interpreted. It was just a truth that, there was a home. There was just a home. And the person, like, it transcended personality, it transcended this body, it transcended, and that place. And it's always available. It's always here. It never changes. Life doesn't, what is and what the truth of us is unending and ever. And I say that, and I think anything I say about it is just going to be, but it changed the world.
Yeah.
And it didn't change anything. It just was a revelation of what's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's choice, not a personality choice, but just to be in that place, to experience that, allowed a true abundance to come in. One that isn't required. There's nothing needed for the abundance in that place. There's no relationship, there's no amount of money, there's no activities, things in my world that really it's dependent on. There's nothing. Every breath, every moment, every second, like moment to moment. That's what I would, if I were to try to find a word for abundance, it'd be surrounded around that. And all these artificial, not, I wouldn't say artificial, they're, how else we can take up our time in the world? Like, maybe we chase these things, maybe we do these things, maybe we just, our personalities want a way to kind of move through and try these things out. And there's times and places of physical realities of being a human in this world. And I don't really judge the fact that there's still times and places in my world that I appreciate and enjoy the privilege and the choice that I have in my world. And there's just a place of gratitude now. And if there's extra things, like, really the gratitude is around choice, and just get to be making choice versus in a place from freedom versus having to do something or having to be something specific.
So when most people talk about abundance, we have abundance of income, we have abundance of love, and we have, the greatest abundance that I appreciate is abundance of joy. How do we make all those balance out? How do we be in this radiant joy, this effervescent flow of beingness, without being worried about financial obligations? And how do we bring that those finances to a place where they're just flowing just as much as the joy or the other beautiful things that we experience?
But the three things you broke it into, the abundance of love is that and I'm going to put a big asterisk in that this is going to, everything I say about truth is not true. We are that. Like, there is no lack other than our willingness to open and surrender to it. That place of joy and bliss is also like to want just that and not be open to the, like, bliss is beautiful and sorrow could be just as fucking delicious as bliss is.
Mm-hmm.
And to be with dark and light, they're just like in that truth and that understanding and that openness, all of it's welcome. And whatever shows up, it's a flow with either one of them. So it's not, I don't have a preference to say I want to be in joy and bliss and in this openness. Mm-hmm. I'm open to that experience, and I fucking love the other side of that too. Whichever one shows up, I want to be able to move with. And the third one, the monetary part, what I found really I think we have to get over ourselves. And I think if there is I'm not saying it's a universal law or that there's something behind it, but it's my experience of myself is what I want in the world, what my personality wants, how I want to move in the world. Cool. I want to own that. I want to understand that. I want to take that in. I want to celebrate and all the parts of it, the parts that are needy. Like, there's a lot of great things that in the world that are created from, oh, I went through this pain and I don't want anybody else to have to go through this again. I'm going to create something that's going to be a blessing for others so they don't have to go through child prostitution or military or whatever it might be. They want to create something out of the pain and it's their way to heal and move in the world. And that's all great. So that's their motivation for that happening. And it could come from a really place of hurt. And mm-hmm. something that gets created from that could have a lot of energy. And my place of saying, I want to own those things for myself. And I can use this as an example. So the last 25 years, I started a foundation 25 years ago. And part of it was to give that $1 million away so that I could feel good. And I had a hard time catching up with having a lot of money, never having money, and having those family stories and those family origins. I didn't know how to be with it. And my partner at the time was so conservative around money and very tight that I had nothing to do with the abundance of money. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't be flashy. I couldn't be spending. I couldn't do there was a lot of restrictions around how I can play with it. Mm-hmm. So what I find is the foundation I started all these projects, and it's one of them was this robotics program. And it's a youth robotics program that the center of it, the real part of it was my son came alive in this thing. And did he explore his edges, and did he have a chance to intellectually and come to these things and really be devastatedly bad at something or devastatingly good at something? And did he have an experience of this? And did we have a chance to connect in a way and spend time that he was alive in? Yeah. And the realities of it were that there was only out east. There was in all over the world, but nothing was out in Western Canada. And the process that started up as a 3 to 5 years thing. And it was a big challenge. And my motivation was, I want to be the dad that I didn't have. I want to be present. I want to be here. I want to be engaged. I want to be like really, whatever it is, I have no helicopter parent in me, but if there's a place to be supportive and real and authentic in that place to offer something, and this was his thing. And so what came a lot, it wasn't a choice. Like that came through, like we went out to a competition. He was in grade 10 at the time. Went out and this big glitzy this and tons of this and production values through the galore. And it just moved through me. It's like, oh, this is the next thing. And it felt like this wave that came through. It's like, oh, this is what's next. And this next wave is like, fuck, that's impossible to do. In that you got to get 30 teams together, and you have to have all these school things, and you have to have these programs, and each team's going to be $25,000 to $50,000, and you need 105 volunteers, and there's technical, and it's a 3 to 5 year cycle to get this all done, because you have to build all these things, and this repertoire, and this money, and these sponsors, and everything else. And it's like, fuck no, this is going to happen in 10 months. It's just going to happen. And that energy of, I want to be a good dad. I want to be the dad that I always would have wanted. Nobody cared. The world, that wasn't the story that they needed, that they could hear and that would resonate with them. So I needed to own what my place of abundance was, which is being that dad. And I needed to support and talk to people in a way that spoke to them, that was aligned with what was alive for me. So I went to places that is like, oh, engineer, like the APEGA, which is all the engineers belong to the association. Well, I have all your members that are going to be coming through the cycle in the next 5 to 6 years that will be paying membership dues. I have them all, and I'm going to give them the best, most amazing high watermark experience they're going to have moving forward or in their lives up to this point. The schools, the Schulich School of Engineering is like, I have all the brightest kids that are going to go to Waterloo and going to go down to MIT and all those other places. You're not going to see these kids that you really want in your program. I'm going to give them an experience. I'm going to put them on the USC campus, and I'm going to let you get them an opportunity to be able to explore your engineering department firsthand while they're having their peak experience. So my energy of being a dad was mine. It fueled me, it kept me going. And I created, I felt into and was open to experiencing what it meant to other groups and how it could be a blessing for them. They didn't care to support my ambitions to be a good, what I would consider to be a good dad. They had their own agendas, their own things, their own gifts in the world. So I took my energy and turned it into something that they could hear in a way that was aligned with what we wanted to create. And what I think a lot of people find is there's a motivation. There's just this gift I want to give in the world. Cool. That's yours. That is in you. That is important. That is whether you consider it important to you or there's aliveness. Okay, that's first step. How do you turn that energy of what's alive? And if you can align that with somebody else's purpose, there's abundance financially. I could tell, like, that is, so I had these people write checks of things that weren't even created yet. But the message was, I'm going to help, like, my place and my intent was, how do I be of service to what you really want to do in the world? So APEGA, their part of their mandate is getting more young girls in engineering, and also First Nations kids involved in engineering. So we started all girls teams. We went to the reserves and started up teams so that those young people have a chance to have a hands-on experience. And so part of their mandate of what they're supposed to be doing in the world, and also supporting the members. So their members that they have now are bored and disengaged from really engineering and the excitement they probably got into it. We're going to let them go back and mentor those high school kids and get re-engaged back in engineering and the things that really would bring them joy. So not only are they supporting the next generation, and they're supporting the generation that's already come through and paying dues now. And we set it up in ways saying, well, I'm not convincing you of anything. Those people that are engaged in your members and that are paying the dues to be able to pay for the sponsorship for these things, they're going to be ones reporting back to you. So I built in, like, if I can take care of somebody else, if I can be a blessing to somebody else, while honoring what's true for me and alive for me, those two things come together, and with something that the world really wants and needs, right? And it's not my perception of what the world wants and needs, is what, like, there could be, I don't know if I'm great at educating, or that if somebody's already believes something, then I can tap into that. If they don't, if it's my belief and I want to convince them of my belief, I'm challenged by that. It's like, well, that's just not the right. And I could have a really strong belief that you should believe the same things I do. Okay, I get it. And that's something within me. It's not really about anybody else. So that abundance is what you do well in the world, what the world wants and needs and knows that it needs, what I do well, and what really lights me up. And if I can find that place where that intersects, so my place in the world has been, and it changes and moves, and it's moment to moment for me. So for a while, I really got interested in art. So I did, uh, and had my own personal journey to go through in terms of sexuality and my relationship with women. So I did body art for 4 years, and
Hmm.
so uh,
How did that come about? Like how did that inspiration to move into body art? Like what was the thing that said, David, let's move along this path for a while?
quieting the mind and being
Hmm.
open to what's here and what comes alive. So
Hmm.
it's and the things that I found that are um, they just are moved, like they're just things that physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, whatever, like they're just like, oh, it just opens and it's there, and it's like there's tons of those things that are just like, oh, like if that breath or that my eyes come, like what I've come to is if my eyes really open, it's just my breath changes and my body posture changes. Oh, I'm curious about that. I want
Hmm.
to move towards whatever that is that's drawing that,
Right.
noticing, being with it. And then there's something about I think true abundance comes from being a blessed, like whether you want to look at it from a scientific point of view, I think as a species that's it's grown in community. Have we been natural selection so that we could, if we could be a blessing, we're a great hunter, we bring more food back to the tribe, or uh, that we're great at, putting shelter together. And so if we're good at contributing something that others care about and that would help support them, I think we've been rewarded for that over the years. So it could be as simple as a genetic um, pre-programmed way of saying, hey, we feel good about ourselves if we could be a blessing to others. So if
Hmm.
I can tap into those things and saying, without giving myself up and prostituting and letting go of my own values, my own integrity, can I be aligned with what's truly here, and then also in a place of humility? I don't get to choose how like how somebody else is. I need to meet them wherever they're at, whatever their perspective is, knowing that it's not my place to change anybody. My place is to be in here and be true to what's here, and meet them and be able to speak to them in a way that they can hear, in the way that they understand, and that and if there's an alignment to say, I understand this is your gift that you want to give in the world. This is your mandate. This is what make you feel good about. Oh, okay. Let me be that. I want to be that. So I'll just go back to the example we used earlier. Is, man, did we do a great job for a peg? Like they wrote us a big check, and they couldn't have done the same thing, a fraction of what they for if they spent 10 times the money.
Hmm.
And the number of members that got engaged, and the number of uh, new members that are now, like this has been going on. There's 6,000 kids now in Western Canada that are involved in this program, and a lot of them going into paying membership dues now that started whenever we started 7-8 years ago. Yeah, and as their membership really got engaged and involved and taken over parts of the roles and things, and really, yeah. And the people that actually had to make the choice to write the check, are they supported and felt like, oh, is there any pushback or anything, judgments about us writing those checks? No, they're all they're doing is getting positive support from the people that are making those, that are part of their membership and part of their community.
Hmm.
And I find that a lot of people, and I use the arts because we've been in the arts, I want to do a show. And my show is, well, what really motivates me is, I'm going to use a fictional one. It's like masturbating. So as a 52-year-old who wants to like that is what's alive for, that might be what's alive for me and what I want to share with the world. And is that something the world, like if it's purely selfish, I don't think abundance comes back from that. If you can
Mm-hmm.
align with and be with and honor whatever's going on for you, and use that place to say, oh, now I have something else that is a blessing for others. I think that's where abundance comes from. And if I want to do a show and I want to put a show on as a 52-year-old male that wants to masturbate, well, am I going to get rewarded? Is financial abundance going to come? Maybe not. And if I were to say, okay, so that's in me and that's the show I want to do, are there organizations that have an agenda for body shaming or this or whatever else it might be that would want to support that notion of, well, let's explore this and have this be, a more public, and could that the motivation and the storyline come along with to be a healing thing and a place of understanding of our human bodies? Yeah, it could. And could people be supportive of that versus my need to say I want to publicly masturbate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one, there's financial abundance that comes from. The other one, not so much.
Mm-hmm. But so A is the desire to masturbate in public, and B is the desire to bring healing about for other people. But I don't know if you'll. I don't feel you'd create financial abundance either way unless there is an energy flow that's with it, like a calling, like you
Oh,
say, this thing
absolutely.
that lights you up.
Yeah. And that's that first part, is that like whatever's true for you, own it.
Yeah.
Whatever's alive, whatever it is, don't restrict it. Don't let it diminish it. Don't have to like uh, whatever lights you up, whatever it is that's like a truth for you in that moment, honor it.
Mm-hmm.
And my my place is, how do I communicate in a way so that somebody else understands, and I if what really lights me up is in alignment with somebody else's, what they're not supposed to, but what they want to do in the world, how they want to move, how what they want to support in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I might have to change my language about what lights me up versus, oh, this is a bigger perspective of it, not just a personal one, but a bigger perspective. And I'll share that. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not meant to say you manipulation. I don't think lasts. I don't think it brings abundance. It might be short term and bursts, but it's like it doesn't create long term. But if that need and that liveness and that things that are moving through you, let it out.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, if it's purely yours, okay, claim that. And if financial abundance is part of what you want to move towards, the invitation would be to try to find how that aligns with somebody else, and that um, and why is it worthwhile for them to contribute financially?
Mm-hmm.
And it's uh, I found, if you worry about money or you don't worry about money, both are choices. And it's, I have a family that, oh, I got a comment from my brother the other day. I posted this picture of me body painting years ago, and his comment he put on it was like, oh, I never know, like when people ask what you're doing nowadays and how you make a living, I never know how to answer them. If you ask my kids, who've been, they're 24 and 21, so if like what I do for a living and how do I make a living, they wouldn't know how to answer you.
How do
I
you
don't know how
answer
to.
that?
Sorry.
I was just going to ask you, how do you answer?
uh, I follow the passions that come up for me. I follow
Yeah.
my nose,
Yeah.
and there's no long term, like it's moment to moment, and it could change and it moves and shifts. And I don't know, like in my past, I had a bunch of companies and I had this and that and all the blah 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 blah, and I gave most all that away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I have no traditional. And the longest, most difficult question most people ask me, what do you do for a living? I never know how to answer that question.
Mm-hmm.
And
What
if
what comes up when people ask you?
I was like, oh, it's not traditional. I understand most people see there's boxes. You have a
Yeah.
job and you do this, and here's your roles and here's your things, whatever else. And I just would not be a good employee. I just don't know how to do it. I just don't have the
Yeah.
skill set to say, oh, I like possibilities are always. I can't. I have a challenging time seeing things in boxes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, the possibility for this. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And oh yeah, yeah, I know. And there's yeah, yeah, and great, great. And oh, and so roles and assignments and
I love
authority
how
and all
you I love how you describe that.
it's and for people that are like to be with that, it's like and even the projects that I start up, I put an artificial time frame on myself in that my place to start, move mountains, build in the China shop, make things and create sustainable models and things, whatever else. And then I need to get out of town because the people that need to maintain and keep things going once it's up and going, I drive them nuts. And it's like, oh, I know things are great. But what if we, and oh yeah, yeah. And oh yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
I like, there's no end to, there are no ends to end. It's just like, oh, this can be great. And if you have to do that every day and that's your thing, and you have these other things that are going and you're responsible for and you're moving with, I just add more things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's working now. Oh, great. Let's see if we can break, not like, why would you break that apart? Because there could be, and. So I drive people nuts. So my maximum time I do a project is 3 years because I know the patience level, those who actually have that have that energy of maintaining and doing things
Mm-hmm.
day to day, I drive them nuts. And they
And
put up with me for 3 years. After
and
that,
you could also like destroy a budget.
oh, well, it's cute that there's restrictions on that. And I think that if we open ourselves and if we added more value, if we did this and we contributed more, then a budget's funny. Like they're just
Yeah.
okay, great. I understand that's a limitation. So I get that, and I'm not a. I just see that there's possibilities of saying, oh, if we did this, well, then we would create more abundance, and we just would do this, or we just like. I don't see them as limitations. I just see possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
and that drives a lot of people that are more comfortable in boxes. It drives them nuts.
Right. So one question I asked on Facebook yesterday, and I'll ask you, what makes you feel radiantly alive?
Not being here, just expressing and being.
Like where's here?
Uh, so releasing mind
Mm-hmm.
and being with whatever wants to come through and flow.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing specific. There's nothing. Uh, I can't think of anything other than moment to moment, being open to what it is that wants to be explored. My attachments to a lot of things there's not a lot of things that I'm attached to doing anymore.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So I was at a workshop, weekend workshop of yours. Are you okay with talking about it on here?
It's absolutely. And the only thing I'd ask is, uh, I will have restrictions in terms of talking about my experience of others. I'm totally open to my experience.
Yes, yes, and that will be my questions, and I'll only speak to my experience also. So my experience was that, and this is the energy game that I feel plays in with flow and like you're talking about what's coming in for us, what lights us up. And the first night when I was there, you asked if somebody would had an offering, and I really felt the flow, and I actually felt this coming in a few days before, and so I approached you and said, "Yeah, I have an offering." And what I found really interesting though was that like you were in agreement, and I know that energy was moving, but I could also feel my participant energy moving. So I was like, I had these two dynamic energies moving through me, and it was like this, consistent. It was a lot. It was a lot, much different than I've ever experienced at a retreat or a festival. Although I have, I've taught at festivals, but I have never taught at a festival in flow like this one. This one, I had no agenda. I had no box to work out of, and I just let it go and moved. I still feel grateful about that opportunity. And so one thing I wanted to say too is that I think it's your energy, like this. You have this complete openness of whatever this universe is going to bring in for us to experience is owned by each one of us individually, and we all have our own experiences in the moment, and you're like a great support for that to play out without there being a whole lot of I never noticed any drama that was, how do I say this? At some festivals and retreats, especially one where we're diving so deep, sometimes I feel that there's a lot of drama that plays out that's not managed. Or I don't want to say managed either, but it doesn't flow very well, and it feels choppy and unaligned. Where in this weekend, everything felt very synchronistic and flowing together, and yeah, it was beautiful. And I think that's because of how you flow in life right now. I think that's you brought this together, and you held this space for everybody to flow freely. I don't know.
I think it's always choice. People are always in choice if that's the place. And if we had an intention for the weekend, it was to hold the agreements, whatever we agreed to in advance, so that there was a container, not a safe container, but a brave container.
Yeah.
And holding open that everything we wanted to do or express would come from a place of love, however we could tap into to that in that moment. And that we don't know anything else anybody else wanted or needed, and not to have an agenda for people.
Right.
And the intention is just to be the free, open being, like whatever that expression is for everybody, of being truly who you are in this moment, and being as open as you can to whatever that means to you, and not really there's nothing to teach, there's nothing to know, there's nothing to do. And it's the idea, there's a little saying about I've been curious about has been, I'm not so sure that I'm really drawn or aspired to do anything to move towards something, to become a better something, or have to do something to, like, I don't feel drawn to do anything to improve or do. What it feels like is, it's just that I need to release everything that isn't truly me, that isn't a truth. And it's just letting go of those things I have attachments for, things that I move in the world this way. And I will say that I found it an interesting journey for myself, in that both are available. So that flow of being and check it, and just moment to moment being here, and letting that flow and be present, and without a lot of judgments. And if there's judgments and things, I claim them, like, oh, that's coming up for me, oh, it's not cute and at the same time, the exact opposite is available for me as well. I had 14 pages of notes and things and agendas and schedules and none of it came out. So finding moment to moments and I know myself in manipulation and wanting to please and all these, the caretaker and all those things. They're all just aspects of me that if I want to come out and play, they can.
Mm-hmm.
And the intention was to say, oh, I want to release all of those. So it's, and I find like I've done a lot of other festivals and other things, and this is probably the first one where we just said, and my Christina co-presenter was a beautiful reflection for all this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's cute. You made all these notes, like all these things. Like, oh, and I'm not like even the the agreements and things we had to go through at the front. I'm totally cool saying, hey, we need to make sure we go through these, and that's part of the structure. And it was such a great reflection that she just flowed with like, oh, she didn't read any of the script. She didn't. Oh, okay. And like, oh, we're not in order. And this. Oh, all right. This is where we're going. So, uh, uh, so my experience of was assisted or a reminder given right off the start. Like, no, this is going to be, and it will be one of those times. I don't have a lot of memories of things other than I don't try to hold on to things, but that the sensation or the experience of just releasing and being and knowing that I may not know what's going to come out, and it could not be all love and light and not in a really beautiful soft voice and this and that edge or that whatever else. Like there's a I embrace the darkness in me. I fucking love the fucking darkness in me. It will cut away anything that isn't love. It calls, strips bare anything that is not love. And so personality and things, whatever. It's, oh, that's great, that's cute, but we're fucking gonna we're gonna fucking destroy that. And and it doesn't come from a place of saying, oh, we need to do this and I know what's better for you. It just feels like that's what's being presented by the person, like the energy of the person that, and oh yeah, we're just, and if that's and that's there and wants to move, and great. And even though like the experience of my memory of when you approach saying, oh, I had this thing came through me last night and there's this thing, and it's like, I think I let you, like I didn't stop you right there, but I think it's like, oh, oh, I'm already a yes. Like it was the look, like you had this look in your eyes, like, oh fuck, it doesn't, like whatever you're gonna say, I'm a yes. Like that, I know that look. It feels like I knew, like I don't know this look, but this knows this look, that look. It's like yes. And there was things that got created there. It's like that is like, not that there's an agenda and everybody had to do this and this and this, but just like, oh, that is so the story would be a lot better if I could express about other people, but it's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's been waiting. Like there was somebody that came when they first came in, they said this and this and this and this, and I thought, oh great, I hear you, I appreciate what you're saying, and part of me thought, oh, I don't know if that's going to have a chance to play. I don't know if that's, and fuck, did it come out and play? Like there was no other place in the weekend for that except for when you did your thing, and it was like, oh, and they came along, and this and it's like, no, you couldn't have created something that was more aligned with what they truly like got expressed when they first came in and says, oh, I brought this in and I would love to do that, and it's like I felt the energy, and I was like, oh, I don't know if that'll come out, if that'll have a chance to play, and it did. So
Yeah.
like
It was funny when you're talking about making notes and stuff. Like Saturday morning, I was making notes and blah 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 blah, and then when I sat down in the seat, I was like, no, no notes. I dropped my book and just went with whatever flowed. Yeah, it was beautiful.
I found a lot of the weekend, like or even I noticed when I'm at your presentation and it's like, oh, we have more time before lunch. And what I noticed was, and I honored, it's like, oh, the controller says, oh, we got more time than 45 minutes. Or how are we going to, then it's like, oh, cool. The pleaser's coming out. So I embraced it, loved it. Say, okay, fuck, I'm letting that go. Now what's here. And what got created after that, I've loved. And it was like, I didn't I had no idea that was going to be next.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this unfold. It's like, I'm curious about what's going to happen next too. And I found your comment about being a participant and a presenter,
Mm-hmm.
the roles that we put on, and the okay, so I could be totally in flow and be open, and it's because it's mine. But if I'm putting on a role and somebody else's, I'm responsible for somebody else. And I have to act different. I have to be different. Totally get that one. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is, I usually go even more on the other side. I make sure I have both feet planted, and I will forego anything, and I will do. And it's me flying the plane. I got it. I'm responsible, and there's times and places for that where it could be a blessing. So flying that plane, me holding that space and holding that, and not really being freaked out or that I'm right in a
Mm-hmm.
really in a dangerous, not knowing anything makes it a little more dangerous, but uh, so that calmness or that can be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a conscious choice, if it's a role that I take on, I just put on because I think this is what I should be, and I want to be liked, and these other things. Oh, cute that I want to be. Oh, I want to be liked. Oh, I want to be respected. Oh, I want to. Oh, yeah. Those are mine. Oh, how perfectly human of me.
Yeah.
Oh, cute. Okay, so I feel those. I'm okay with it. Okay. Now I have freedom to make a choice from that place. Say, do I want to follow that, or it's like, oh, it's cute that I want to be. Oh no, I don't want to do that. That's that. Yeah. It's like, and I know there's this infinitely loving being, and there's a killer. I can, if I had to kill, I could rip somebody limb to limb with my hands, and
Mm-hmm.
everything in between is always available.
Yeah.
And I don't judge like I would judge if I chose to let that come out. But I'd want to be in choice, and the fact that I don't honor that's it's here feels like it would keep it in shadow, and it would come out in ways that I wouldn't be conscious of.
Yeah. And that's when I feel a person's energy becomes distorted, and then people around that person are like, "Ooh, what's going on with that person?" Because they can totally feel that repression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, hmm. I have one last question for you. Um, what keeps you in motion?
Uh, my experience myself in my who and how I move in the world now, it's challenging. I find it challenging in that I don't have attachments to things happening. Like, and I'm a doer. Like, there's just things that I will move mountains. I will create things. I will build things. I will create organization. From nothing to something quickly and big bold things. And that just hasn't moved. That hasn't been with me. That hasn't. Uh, and I don't really put meaning to it yet. It's just not moving right now. So um, and I had to let go of the notion. I'll just claim it because I claim things out loud just so that they can move. There's been times and places where it's just like, oh, sensation, and oh, it's this, and oh, it's clear, and it's move, and oh, I don't know if that'll ever come back. I don't know if there'll be another one. Like, what would make me think, or it's not me that it's not my personality that it just shows up and it's abundantly clear and real and authentic and oh that um, so my preference, and I don't get my preference, I just get to claim my preference is that I move from those places where it's not a choice, it's not something this or my part of my journey is not about self anymore,
Mm-hmm.
it's about something, and I challenge to try to explain like it's not humans, it's just love, and what I would consider to be love, how do I be of service to that? So movement to me feels like no, like it's not knowing that, it's just something that's here, it's just here, And my place of movement is where that, if that comes alive, that I've noticed that, and that wants to be something to have, like there's something to do with it, then I want to be open to that. And what I notice is the distractions and things and how I know myself in the past, none of those things are calling that forward.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another incarnation of saying, okay, so then my personal work, this, and okay, it's great. Now it's not about this, healing this, it's about being this service to love. And my preference would be is I would move from that place, and knowing there may be lots of times and places and things that may not call that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there's ever an answer, but that's as close to an answer as I would know how to give.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Do you feel called to bring anything else forward? I mean, we're kind of at that time space where I traditionally end a podcast, but do you have anything else you feel like bringing forward?
I have love for you, brother.
Mm.
I found I just noticed a sensation that's here that just has a lot of appreciation and gratitude for how you show up in the world.
Thank you. And I want to offer you some gratitude too. And this gratitude's been sitting with me for a few days. And we were in the kitchen and you were enjoying a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And you were so with that sandwich, and that I offered you I was interesting. I was like, oh man, I can feel him enjoying that sandwich. I can just feel every sensation in my mouth as David's eating that sandwich. And I'm like, but I want a blueberry on that sandwich. So I went and got some blueberries and offered you a blueberry, and you looked at me like, what? Yeah, that was beautiful. And so I'm just like so grateful for how you show up, but also how you flow, how you let yourself just drop right into those moments of ecstasy. Yeah, it's beautiful to see and inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining me on Expansioncast. It's been my pleasure for sure. And so wonderful to hear from you today.
Take care, my brother. I look forward to the next time our paths meet.
This podcast is Expansioncast. Thank you for listening. If it's in your ability to support this podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/expansioncast.